Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard with your host, Bill Stierle. And Bill, it's very interesting to see how language and communication changes over time, depending on where you sit. And I think we're seeing the president sitting in a very different place than he has been in the past. And most notably, recently, he went down to Georgia to have a rally. And this episode, We're not really going to talk about how hardly anybody's wearing masks or social distancing at that rally. What we're talking about is what the president said at the rally in support of the two, Republican senators who are in runoff, Loeffler and Perdue, that he is supporting to try to hold the majority in the Senate. And he used some very interesting language, which was a very different tone, a different kind of communication from him. So I think that makes a perfect subject for us to talk about today.
It really does. I mean, one of the biggest challenges with language is just noticing that you can use language in different ways to get different outcomes. So as Trump, and we've talked about him being a master brander, marketer, salesperson, a person that can convince, talk into, talk about something in a really powerful way, use the different levels of dopamine inside the listener to get them to purchase things, create a consistent message about how wealth equals strength, how his products and services that are branded as the Trump product and services are better, the best, the greatest, the most outstanding things. What happens if it's not true is something that's really problematic. So if you take something like Trump Airline, where the rumor is, or the truth is that he wanted to put a gold toilet in there, and the crew's going like, well, you can have a gold toilet, but it weighs so much, and that's going to cost X number of gas or fuel, to put that toilet in there. That's not your strongest financial play in the competitive airline market, is to put a gold toilet in there. And he goes, no, I want a gold toilet in there. So they put it in there, but it only lasts as long as you can pay for the fuel you're hauling the toilet back and forth, and you're paying for the toilet. You're not generating revenue from a business standpoint. So we can talk as human beings about how to use language and deal with the shades of gray or the shades of truth that we need to deal with, focusing on what the value or the value proposition is not as strong as focusing on what is the branding message or what is the consistent message to keep people engaged as long as he can, until there's nothing more left, and let the listener be left with the emptiness. So that's what's kind of happening, is that the listeners, the people at the Trump rally, are going to be left with emptiness. That's what happens at the end of the investors at Trump Airline. The investors are going to experience emptiness. The banks are going to have to experience a form of emptiness. They're only going to get 50 cents or 25 cents back on the dollar. There's a emptiness that sits there. So this is these 7 languaging patterns are something that we can play around with today, because that's what sets up a very strong victim and victim culture. And you watched the clip the same as I did. Is he called everybody in the audience a victim?
Well, and not only that, very uncharacteristically for Trump, who's always a winner, he's always showing strength. He said, "We are all victims. Everyone here, the thousands of people here at this rally, you're all victims." So he didn't just label all of them as victims, he put himself into it also.
It,
We are all victims. That's not a very uplifting, set the vision, forward looking rallying
no,
cry.
no, he is, but it is brilliant. It is brilliant to do it that way. It is like absolutely brilliant, because by doing it that way, he engenders loyalty. He is saying, I am in your tribe, win or lose. Oh, but we're winners. But no, we're victims. But no, we're really winners. But we'll prove I never lose. And he's going to sit at the end of this thing, and he's kind of at the end of the rope a little bit. And it's it's not focusing on what the primary part of the job is, which was problem solving. How do you problem solve a presidency? You've got to make like decisions. You can't like put things off. I mean, the you've got to face the problems. This choice, which is a junky choice, and this choice that is a worse junky choice, you're going to take this choice because it's a little better than this choice over here. Both choices are still junky, but at least I'm solving a problem. He just went, I'm sorry, there's no problem. There's no virus. There's no hoax. This is a hoax. This is fake news. He kept calling his primary job of solving problems not problems. They're fake. They're not worth talking about. But they are worth talking about if you want to talk about him being a victim. Now he'll pull it to that they're out to get me, but that's not what's real. The real thing is that I'm a person that doesn't face problems or deal with problems. I just want things my way. And my way is, how can I generate as much revenue from this experience as I can? Whether or not the thing is real or not, I'm just going to, take out the darker side of capitalism to the spin, which is I can borrow money and I can create wreckage and I can make revenue out of that function.
So, Bill, was he never going to be very helpful to those Senate candidates at this rally? I mean, because presumably the primary problem to solve was to get people out to the polls to vote for these two senators on January 5th. Doesn't sound like he was focused very much on that.
He is helpful. He actually did an excellent job of helping them
Please help
because
me
they're
understand
victims.
that.
Because he helped them greatly. He said, we're victims, and us victims have got to fight. We cannot sit down there and fight. We cannot take this. So they come out of the rally more inspired to fight for those candidates. The only problem is that there's not enough of them. There's not enough people, possibly. And the reason why I say the word possibly is because the down ballot votes have been Republican. They haven't been Democratic. Everything the all the down ballot votes are Republican. The Republicans took back a number of House seats. They held the Senate pretty solidly, and it's a little unsettling, but they did pretty darn good on the rest of the voting thing. So the voting being fraud or people hiding ballots, and no one has ever said that here's a ballot, here's all the person that vote for Republicans, and Trump, they voted for Biden. Did they cut the ballot in half and only count one half of the ballot and not count the other half? Because that's really what happened in the voting piece, is that the down ballots looked pretty darn good for the Republicans.
Well, and in fact, both of these Senate candidates did win more votes than their Republican challengers in Georgia. Now,
Right.
Biden won by what? Something like 12,000 votes, I believe, in Georgia after
Yeah.
two plus recounts confirming
Yeah.
that. So clearly there was ticket splitting where people voted for Biden because they'd had enough of Trump.
Correct.
But when it came to their senator, they
That's right.
voted Republican.
I need to still feel good about my Republican identity. I'm voting there, but this guy I'm tired of listening to. This guy I'm not listening to. I want to I'll take the other guy and I'll vote the other. I'll still stay with my Republican identity, but I'm not voting for this guy again because I feel uncomfortable and I feel tired by listening to him, because it's the same when you hear a TV commercial over and over again, Tom, and you're going like, yeah, it was funny the first time, but I don't want to listen to it now. It's just not, it's not fun. It's not good enough. It's not funny enough. So the languaging patterns that gets us here is problem solving and explanation then turns into bribes, which are rewards, deals, and punishments, which Trump speaks from often, and labels and diagnoses, which he speaks from often. And then he uses criticism. And now, at the end of his tenure, he's left with blaming and shaming. So those are the seven patterns when I talk about conflict with people is watch how the language moves from this productive problem solving adult, I got to work on this, and some explanation about why I think it's going to work a little bit better than the terrible way that we have to choose to do it. Try to stay out of rewards, deals, and punishments. Try to stay out of the bribery place if we can, and then set the rule in place to work and see if we can make it better next time around, or if we can find another answer. Let's test to see how it goes, and we can change the law as we go. But the challenge is that when our society is so stuck on labels, criticism, defensiveness, contempt, withdraw, blaming, and shaming, we can't get out of our own way language wise. And you'll see that in debates. All we're stuck with is labels. Here, let me give a couple of labels. Can be also used as talking points, Tom. So a label is talking point. Well, the president has every right to challenge this in court. He has the right to do due process. The answer is, well, at the expense of truth, at the expense of trust. No, he doesn't. But no one's saying that sentence.
No one's saying that.
And
Everybody's saying no, he has the right to pursue whatever he wants to. And to an extent, he does. He can file as many lawsuits as he wants to. Nobody can stop him. But at some point those lawsuits don't achieve any meaningful result.
so the media fails here. The media fails because it doesn't point out what he's doing or what is happening. All they're doing is reporting on something and making that reporting of this is what he said, not this is what he said and this is the cost of what he said. That this is what the talking point is. And the senators, the woman senator from Georgia said that the president has every right, and she said that more than a dozen times. At least
Definitely.
my experience was it was 6 to 12 times at least during the debate. Where is the languaging expert on the Democratic side to say, well, I guess you could try to pursue truth when you're still in a place of falsehood, but Senator, isn't there ever a time when you have to fight for truth ahead of party or identity? Isn't there a time that truth has to win out? Now
Wow.
look at the shock on your face. You're going like, holy crap, isn't there a time when truth has to come to the front of the list? If the person doesn't just sit back and regrettably he just sat back and smirked instead of go after it. So isn't there a time when truth has to come to the front of the list? Isn't there a time when we have to experience this our loss and let it go? Is there a time that you can't trust the good voters and the good what do you call the good poll workers here at the state? You know what? I'm going to trust the poll workers here on this one. I'm going to trust the state. I'm going to trust the state. I'm going to trust. See, all of a sudden, I'm speaking like the Democratic candidate here. And by the way, this is not a it's not a partisan conversation. She could have done this. She could have said, listen, I really trust the poll workers. And even though the president is trying to get his pursuit of truth, I really trust the poll workers. And she could have honored him and still got the voters she needed.
And pivoted. Wow, isn't that very interesting? Because she really backed herself into a corner.
That's the way to think.
She probably wasn't terribly skilled, because you're right. She did say, like, over and over, the president has the right to pursue every legal recourse to make sure that this was a free and fair election in Georgia. But by the end of this debate, and it was, by the way, it was, Kelly Loeffler is her name.
Loeffler, that's right, Loeffler.
By the end of this debate, she got herself into a bit of a pickle, because she was asked whether Trump's continued attacks on Republican Governor Brian Kemp and Republican Secretary of State Brett Raffensperger about the validity of the election, the presidential election, and whether she worried it might have an effect on the runoff. What she said, it's interesting, because she worked very hard. When she said the president has every right to pursue every legal recourse, the question she was asked was, can you now say that the president lost the election? And she was trying not to say yes. She's trying to say not to agree with the idea that the president lost the election. But what she ends up saying is, the buck stops with the Secretary of State. He has to run an election that Georgians trust, because everything is at stake on January 5th, the future of the country. We can take the path of supporting the American dream, of standing the economy back up and getting through this virus together. But when she said everything's at stake on January 5th, what that really meant was, well, it's a lot more important for the Republicans to hold the Senate. Everything being at stake means Joe Biden has won the presidency. So it was a backhanded admission, saying everything's at stake on January 5th, that Biden won. And that's the pickle, and she couldn't argue both sides of it.
Yeah, the black and white language, the one way or another language, right or wrong, good or bad language, is a very 12-year-old mindset. It's very, very 12-year-old. And see, there's no mistake. Free and fair election. Fairness is a 12-year-old value set that we need to practice when we're 12. 9 to 12 years old practice. Tom, you have 9 to 12-year-olds running around your house, I think, don't you?
I do, and boy, there's fairness arguments on a daily basis.
Now, any parent that's listening to us right now, they're going like, oh my God, the fairness narrative. The fairness narrative is something to be practiced between ages 9, to 12, because they're coming out of, a child is coming out of me, which they need to be, or they'll die. They have to feed me, care for me, protect me, or they ain't gonna make it. It's a rough go if they don't get some trust there.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, and anthropologically speaking, I mean, yeah, children have that need to be cared for, or else
they do. But guess what? But they also, as soon as they're 9 to 12, they're going like, I understand why you're not just caring for me and doing everything for me, and it's just not fair when I lose something. The answer is, you lost something. And and the phrase that shows up is, life is not fair. The real phrase is, life is an experience of not 100% right or wrong. It's images or levels of gray between, am I going to get everything I want, or I'm only going to get part of things I want, and I got to live with the loss. Notice, fairness is a win-lose, and it's a very young narrative. So, and it's, people wonder why people can vote with Trump, is that he's tapping into the need for fairness not being met. At the same time is that it's it's advocating one of a primary Republican talking points, which is self-reliance. Take care of yourself. Don't depend on the state. Wait a minute. We want to depend on the state. No, don't depend on state. Self-reliance. Well, what are you doing at this rally then? Are you going to advocate for fairness, which means you need to do something to be self-autonomous individual? No, it's not fair. They're not counting the votes right. It's like, well, you go count the votes then. No, I don't want to count the votes. Well, you go count the votes then. Are you the ones that are volunteering? No. Well, go count the votes. Figure out how the votes are done. No,
Well,
I just know they're lying. I just know it's not fair because the president saying it's not fair. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm being
you're,
funny, but it's also a 9 to 12-year-old narrative.
yeah,
So,
you are sort of dramatizing it a little bit, but to make a point, which I think is a really
sure.
good one, Bill. And to me, this is really fascinating. Uh, recently I saw an interview with Brad Pascal. You remember who he is? He was
Oh yeah,
the
Brad, sure. The
previous
former. Mhm.
he was the campaign manager for Trump's campaign through, like, when was it? Sometime in the summer. After the Oklahoma City rally that had only, so many thousand people and it wasn't the big rally it was supposed to be, he was on his way out. Well, and then he had sort of some personal issues after he was out, and he made the news. But the point is, he was interviewed recently about the election, and he said, and I just want to touch on this point and come back to Loeffler, because this is fascinating to me anyway. I hope it is to our listeners. That Brad said, if the president had only showed some compassion and empathy over the course of this year regarding the coronavirus, he would have won this election pretty easily. And I think that's largely true. I think that he would have swung a lot more people to him if he had been more empathetic with the people and their concerns over the coronavirus. Now, you could debate me on that and, agree with me or not. But interestingly, what you just said about Loeffler, that if she had just done two things, she could have said, like you said, the president has every right to preserve a legal option. But then
Yeah.
she said, because the president, and there's been a lot of talk about how the president calling the election rigged, calling everything that happened in Georgia unfair, is going to demotivate Republican voters not to come back and vote in the runoff elections for Senate on January 5th. There's a lot of debate about that, and there may be some truth to that, that by continuing to say the election was tainted and rigged, people say, well, why am I going to vote? My vote's not going to matter anyway. Look what happened in the presidential election, right? But then Loeffler could have cured that. You just showed us she could have cured that.
You could
She
have
could have
cured it.
she could have given support to Trump. He has every right to serve the option. I'm going to trust the poll workers and the process, and give empathy and to them, and
Yes.
to say I believe in the system, and that could then cure
Yes.
people from saying my vote's not going to count.
Right.
But
I
she
mean,
didn't do it.
no, and this is the challenge. And the weird part about it is you really can't argue with Trump's success. I mean, his success, the slash and burn, the divided country, the us against them, is what it takes many times to get a fan to buy a t-shirt for their favorite team. It's like, I am on this side of this team. I am on the side of this city. This is my city and my team. I am going to live and die with the Falcons. I am going to live and die with the Dolphins. I am going to live and die with whatever the team is, the Jets, even though they're 0 and whatever right now.
Yeah, they haven't won a game yet. Looked
It's
like they
like
were about to until
they were
about
about to. They snatched losing from from, from the grips of winning. And see, see, a victim, it depends upon and it leans upon a grievance rather than it leans around truth. I can cultivate a lot of loyalty if I'm a victim. I can cultivate a lot of loyalty. We'll get them next time. We're disappointed today, but we're going to come back and get them next time. There are in the NFL 31 losing teams every year. There's only one winning one. So there's something to losing and playing the victim and saying, I'm going to get you next year, that really makes the fans and, our ability to step back into participate in life, and that victim, that loss, that we're going to pick ourselves back up, we're going to bounce back. That, and Trump is just playing the music that goes with that. And so Loeffler and all the rest of the Republicans are going like, we're shutting up, man. We're going to let this guy take the heat for the victim thing. And we're just going to follow his coattails, because we learned if we shut up, then we don't become the target. And his message is just let the other side be the other team and let them be the target. And it's not, this started way back with Newt Gingrich. I mean, these people are bad people. And why did they go that way? Well, they just came off of Nixon getting, things. So they had to we're good. We're really good. Nixon was one bad person, but the Republican Party, we're really good. And it's really, really hard, because people can tolerate the insults. They get even unintentional. It brings the, I can pick a sentence that the other side is saying, and I can amplify that to prove that they're wrong and bad. Defund the police, that slogan catches on, and then all of a sudden you hear it in the debate. We're going to stop because they're going to defund the police. And meanwhile, the guy's going like, ain't defunding anything. But it doesn't matter, because that's not the way branding and marketing works. Is I'm going to hang whatever sentence that's on your side over your head and make it the leaded weight that's going to take you to the bottom of the lake, and try to work through it that way. So it's really, really, really unsettled.
That does seem to be how everybody does it. And as you said, the media is an accomplice a lot of the time in doing this,
Right.
because in that debate with Kelly Loeffler and Warnock, who's the Democratic candidate, what the moderator was really focused on is trying to get Loeffler to admit that Trump lost the election, and he's trying to have this gotcha moment, right? That was the whole point, instead of trying to accomplish something more meaningful, because they got her in this pickle of, saying a Republican Senate majority is the only thing keeping Democrats from defunding the police, as you said, and beginning the march towards socialism. And Donald Trump actually won the election and is going to be in office for 4 more years. You couldn't say both of those things. And that's what they were focused on, trying to get her to admit. But had they gone a different way
That's
and
right.
talked to her, because they could have then, like you said, taken this thing, do you trust the people of Georgia? Do you trust the poll workers? Do you trust the process? All this sort of thing. It would have been very different.
Do you think that here's the debate, is that, do you think that Georgians are victims? Do you really think that Georgia are victims? I don't think Georgians are victims. I think Georgians voted. I feel proud that Georgians voted. And I also feel proud that they counted the votes. I also feel proud that they counted the votes a second time, just so that we can have trust. I also feel proud that there are X number of volunteer poll workers in this state. Those people I'm proud of. Those are the real winners. They're the ones that are holding this space so we get to have democracy. Those are the ones I'm putting my hat into. Senator Loeffler clearly isn't doing that. She's saying that you're victims. I don't think we're victims here in Georgia. I just gained 10,000 votes within 3 sentences.
Right.
10, 20,000 votes. Easy. Maybe even more. Because I'm saying I'm not a victim. It's just not. See, victims gain sympathy because we all know what it's like to lose. Tom, you and I know is looking. If you're a victim, Tom, of something, someone stole your car. That happened to me,
That
but
happened to you, I know.
that happened to me. Someone stole my car. I can get tons of sympathy for that.
Sure.
I could get people caring about me right and left. Oh yeah, wow, that is terrible. How did that happen? That could never happen to me. Meanwhile, it could happen to anybody. You know, and you and tragic sympathy replaces truth in a heartbeat. I'd rather feel bad for my friend Bill losing his car rather than the truth that the car was made with a poor system of security on it, and it was easy for them to boot it, and it was really a design flaw inside the car. Now I'm not a victim anymore, but boy, I ain't going to tell anybody that. I'd rather drink from the drops of being a victim than doing that, because I can gain respect for the number of bruises I get.
Oh yeah, look how many likes and shares the post about your stolen car got. Right?
That's right. That's right. That's right. Feeling sad today. My car got stolen. A negative post, you're going to get sympathy coming in your direction. Not necessarily empathy, but you will get sympathy coming in your direction about that's too bad. I feel sad about that for you. And meanwhile, I'm going like, yeah, sure, I'll take a cup of that tea any day. And this is a marketing tactic. This is a branding tactic. This is a sales tactic that is being used. And it is, it can be used as a short-lived way to engage voters in order to vote your way. It appeals to black and white thinking. I can keep a constant argument. I can keep anger. I can keep the anger alive. I can use it to rail against the enemies around us. I can create a word like socialism and amplify that as if it has horns on it instead of the devil. Meanwhile, we have 3, 4, 5 different systems of socialism that we do here in the United States. We have the firemen, we have the police, we have corporate bailouts, which is a socialism. We have, coddling to the rich, which is another form of socialism. I mean, we have some socialism going on here, whether we like it or not, really. And no one, I mean, very few people talk about the various different kinds of socialism that we have and that we enjoy. Medicare, people enjoy that. Why? Because they want somebody else to save money for them because they don't have the discipline to save the money in their old age for medical stuff. I'm ranting just a tad bit here, Tom. Because I'm just asking for truth to at least just have a little bit of honesty about it. Now how we pay for it and how much is being taken out of everybody's pocket to pay for these things to deal with the human condition on the smaller thing as well as the bigger thing. It's a big thing because we've got to work our way back to dignity, because when Trump says I will be successful, I because we're winners, he's literally taking the entire population of people to get them to walk the plank. The only problem is that they're the first one that's going over the ship. He ain't going over. He's going like, yeah, it really didn't work out. Yeah, they were really lying. They were really this, that, and that. And then all of a sudden they get sympathy, but the person's just donated, 10, 20, $50,000 to your legal fund. Who gets that money? Well, he does. So it's really, really unsettling to actually talk about it. And we've got to work our way back to what dignity looks like. How do we focus on, you know, um, really having a healthier version of truth?
We definitely do.
We definitely do.
Definitely.
So, Tom, when you think about the path forward, because there is a path forward, we kind of generally know, and we're generally trusting that there is going to be a exit from Trump out of the White House. We're generally trusting that there are more people on one side, that it's really too hard to pull it over. if the vote was 1,000 more people in each of the battleground states, it'd be tougher
That'd be much, much more difficult for sure.
because all of a sudden, truth has been damaged, trust has been damaged when you play the victim sympathy game. It just does, it just gets damaged. And just like a 9 year old or a 12-year old, how do you coach your 9 year old and 12-year old to speak the truth and take their lumps when they take their sister's cookie and they have two and their sister has zero? How do you talk about the truth? Because now I just made it a zero sum game. I should probably make it. They had three cookies and your other daughter had one cookie. How do you how do you talk about that truth and get them to admit that's the situation we're in right now? Trying to get Trump to concede is saying, hey, wait a minute, Biden's got three cookies and you only got one. No, he doesn't. That's not true.
Well, but Trump, like you said before, is playing the game of NFL competition. He's
Right.
saying, hey, I'm going to be back in 4 years. He's already saying this. He's like, well, I'm
That's
either
right.
going to be here for the next 4 years or I'll be back in 4 years. I mean, he's basically saying, I may have, he's not ever going to say I've lost, but he's like, well, I may not be in the White House right now, but I'll be back. Like there's this idea of comeback and resurrection. This is going to be
Come
his
back,
narrative.
resurrection. This is straight out mythic. This is a tragic hero that is coming back and things like that. I mean, he during the speech even and said, "Well, I could look at this anticipation. This is brilliant sales marketing stuff. So brilliant. Oh my God, he's so good. Well, I could. I don't have to be here tonight with you. I could be down in Florida retired by now. I could just be on my way right now, but I'm here with all of you. I don't have to do this. I don't have to be here. Oh, thank you so much for being here. It's like they have no idea that all he's doing is reinforcing his brand of winner, affluence, better than, I'm in command, I'm in control of this. But meanwhile, the votes are gone and the money is coming out of their pockets. It's like it's so unsettling. It's so unsettling. Um, so we do need to do a better job as human beings and as Americans to really, communicate with our strengths, with our inner worth, and really face our grievances and really emphasize how we can move into a place of collaboration and cooperation rather than, oppression and social marginalization. I mean, that's that's the part of this that's so damn unsettling. It's because there's money to be made when you think you're oppressed and you think you've been socially marginalized. I mean, people will pay not to hear that, not to experience it. They'll believe, I'll pay money to believe that that you're on my side. But meanwhile, they're just take the revenue or the value is leaving their pockets and going to the other person that's promoting that.
And they don't realize it.
And they don't realize it. They're just bitter and resentment about not having the cookies the way the other sister got cookies, going to the movies, going with her friends, going to do other things that the younger girl can't do. It's really it's really unsettling, and they remember it as that's that's not fair, and that's why my parents aren't fair. You're going like, don't you globally sweep us into a we're not fair, fair, and they do. That's what the mind does. I wish it didn't do it, but that's one of the things it does. So so we are in a very precarious situation because we've got to we've got to figure out a way to return to a dignity narrative and away from a victim narrative. We've got to honor things that we do and do well, not the other way around. So
Well, I think this period of time between now and January 20th is kind of unsettling because there's an inherent uncertainty. What if, hopefully it will improve once we get past the inauguration.
Yeah, there's a belief that once you get past something that it's going to get better. And regrettably, this narrative does not ever get better unless you face it. You got to turn and face it. It's never in the future, Tom. And this is something we should probably make an episode out of, is truth and being in the present moment. That is what you and I are really actually doing right now, is that you said it's going to get better over there. I'm going like, dude, we have to do it right now. It sounds like this. Joe Biden says, hey, if Joe Biden would come out and do this, it would change the world.
Oh my goodness.
All he's got to do is do this 1 5-sentence message. And here it is. I hear President Trump is going to take Air Force One down to Florida and do a big exit ceremony. Isn't that amazing how he's going to get his need for recognition and respect met by doing that? As the president, he gets to do that up to that date. It's interesting that he's choosing to get his need for respect and recognition met in order to build a relationship with his followers. Meanwhile, we're going to be in Washington, D.C. and celebrating the transition into a new government that is going to be looking at this new vision for America, where we care for each other and we collaborate and cooperate against our greatest threat, which is the coronavirus. Good luck on I wish President Trump good luck on his journey of celebration of his presidency. He's pivoting and being in the present moment. Wow. And I just did it with a little bit of energy and fire, but I think if Biden gets a hold of that, he would do it with really a sense of understanding and compassion, and a lot more than a little bit of the energy that I had. But I was making it up as I go because it's coming from my heart, really, to be honest, because that's what he's doing. It's called state the obvious. He's actually doing things that he's saying things that Trump is saying ahead of Trump doing things. The quickest way to get rid of a marketing message is to amplify the message before it happens, and it has no more power.
Wow. And so you take the wind out of the sails of the message.
Take the wind right out of the sails, going like, wow, that's going to be really great.
It won't be what Trump said. It'll be what Biden said that Trump echoed.
Right.
Wow.
You get to celebrate. You're celebrating Trump's presidency with him. His past presidency. He doesn't need to concede. You just celebrated him conceding, whether he likes it or not.
It's sort of really kicking him out the door and closing it behind him, really, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. And it helps him. It helps our nation. It helps our nation because then Biden gets to really have a clean slate, rather than the media putting the two of the events against each other, which one we're going to cover, who's not going to cover people. No, Biden just goes like, well, I guess some of the media might cover them, but some of the, and anybody that wants to cover that, they're more than welcome to. But meanwhile, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing these things and getting some things done to protect the nation, to work collaboratively, to, follow where the numbers are, to make sure that we're safe, to make sure grandma's safe, to make sure we get through the holidays better than we can, to do this. Here are the things that we're up to. Pull the power back on your side, Joe. And that's the thing that, because anyways, this has been fun, Tom. It's
been a lot of fun. I hope the transition team's listening.
I hope they are too. All right, Tom, this is great. All right. Have a good one. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.